my sound is good? All right. I forgot my glasses today, so it's going to be interesting. Okay. As you are.
Need readers?
Are they 1 1/4? How?
They're pretty light.
Okay, I might wear them. Oh, they're perfect. Okay. All right. Marianne saves the day again. Okay. As you are welcome here. Visitor, friend, or longtime member, you are welcome here. With little children, or your partner, or alone, we joyfully welcome you here. You are welcome here as believer or doubter, as joiner or loner, you are welcome here. Feeling a part of us or not, full of energy or not, seeking a vision or a rest, you are welcome to join us as you are. I'm gonna do the librarian thing. Okay. We acknowledge that we are in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish, Nez Perce, Blackfeet, Anishinaabe people who shared the Helena Valley as hunting grounds. The indigenous story of the Helena Valley began long before the arrival of Europeans. We honor those who walked here before us. We honor the path they have shown us in caring for this place for generations to come. We strive for justice and fair relations with their descendants. Okay. If Pam could come forward for the chalice lighting, if you will read together from our order of service. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. And our first hymn this morning is from the Singing Living tradition, number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth. Please stand as you're willing and able. And then this morning we have a reading, number 529, The Stream of Life. We will attempt to read in unison. The same stream of life that runs through my veins night and day runs through the world and dances in rhythmic measures. It is the same life that shoots in joy through the dust of the earth in numberless blades of grass and breaks into tumultuous waves of leaves and flowers. It is the same life that is rocked in the ocean cradle of birth and death in ebb and in flow. I feel my limbs are made glorious by the touch of this world of life, and my pride is from the life throb of ages dancing in my blood this moment. And then for our offering, if Karis and Sam could come forward to get the offertory plates, right there. And then afterwards we'll sing Thank You for Your Loving Hands from the Open Your Heart songbook. Thank you for your gifts this day and all the gifts of action that make this community possible. If you are visiting, please remain our guest. Your presence is your gift to us. Kids this morning, you might notice from your order of service that we're going to do the message for all ages, and then we're going to do a hymn, and then we're going to sing the children out, because I prefer to have the children in the room for this particular hymn, and it's my service. So, so children, if you would like to come forward, we're going to read a book. Is that better? Yeah. Hooray, more children! Yeah, come on. Yay! Okay. Confession. As with all children's stories, this is predominantly for the adults. The children already know this. This book is, all right. This book is called On a Magical Do-Nothing Day by Beatrice Alamagna. I think that's how you say it. All right. You guys might want to see the pictures. They're a little bit gray. Okay. I'm sorry I didn't get them scanned for projection. We're working on it. Here we go again, me and Mom in the same cabin, the same forest, the same rain, Dad back in the city. Mom sat at her desk quietly writing while I destroyed Martians. Actually, I was just pressing the same button over and over. I wish Dad were here. What about a break from your game? Mom growled. Is this going to be another day of doing nothing? She was right. There was nothing I wanted to do except destroy Martians. She took the game out of my hands and hid it as usual. I found it as usual and went outside, where it felt like everything in our garden was hiding from the rain. I held my game tightly. Maybe it would protect me from this boring, wet place. See? It doesn't really rain here. We don't know about rain. I walked down the hill. At the bottom of our path, I saw some flat rocks in the pond. The rocks were round, like the heads of the Martians. I wanted to jump on them and crush them. Oh no, what did I do? My game fell in the pond. This could not be happening to me. I stuck my hand into the water to grab it. It was so icy cold, I screamed. Without my game, I had nothing to do. The rain felt like rocks were hitting me. I was a small tree trapped outside in a hurricane. Just then, there were 4 lights, and 4 huge snails appeared. Is there anything to do around here? I asked them. Yes, indeed, they told me. I reached out and touched their antennae, as soft as Jell-O, and it made me smile. Have you ever, like a slug? Have you ever touched a slug before? No? Oh, they're so fantastic. Okay. So I followed them down a path and found dozens of mushrooms. The air was so damp. I knew the smell from when I was small, my grandparents' basement, my cave of treasures. I felt a sense that there was something special close by, that I was surrounded. I bent down and dug my fingers into the mud, where 1,000 seeds and pellets, kernels, grains, roots, and other berries touched my fingers and hands, and an underground world full of treasures that I could feel. I think we understand the appeal of mud, though, even though it doesn't rain. I looked up at the sky. Sunbeams fell down through a giant strainer and blinded me. I thought I heard the beat of drums from far away, but that sound was my heart. I felt filled up with energy and began running fast, so fast I fell down the hill. And there at the bottom, everything was turned upside down. The whole world seemed brand new, as if it had been created right in front of me. I climbed a tree and looked out as far as my eyes could see. I breathed in air until my lungs were bursting. I drank the raindrops like an animal would. I noticed bugs I'd never seen before. I talked to a bird. I made my biggest splash. Then I collected smooth stones as clear as glass and watched the world shining through them. Why hadn't I done these things before today? Soaked to my bones, I ran inside the house, took off my coat, and looked in the mirror. Oh, I thought I saw my dad smiling at me. My mother was there, still writing, but now she looked different, like one of the creatures outside. Oh, you're soaked. I'll dry you. She took a towel and brought me to the kitchen. I felt like giving her a big hug. I wanted to tell her what I had seen, felt, and tasted outside the world. But I didn't. We just sat in the kitchen, looked at each other, and breathed in the delicious smell of our hot chocolate. That's it. That's all we did on this magical do-nothing day. The end. And now we will sing hymn number 311, Let It Be a Dance, and then sing the children out. With Share the laughter, bear the pain, and run we go again. Let it be a dance. And now we can sing the children out. As you journey, may you know peace and love go with you, peace and love go with you. Learn and grow. Okay. Okay. Sorry, the microphone kind of blocks the screen a little bit. So, I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. I think I know most of you, but not all of you. I'm Jemma Hazen, and I will be delivering the message today, Your One Wild and Precious Life. So I will start us off with a poem by Mary Oliver called The Summer Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I don't know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? As a congregation, we have demonstrated over the years that we are great lovers of Mary Oliver's poetry. I think this is a good thing, and I'm glad for it. She was a great poet, but I have to be honest and say that for at least 10 years, I have been unable to read her at all because every time I saw her name, it reminded me of the last line of this poem, and I would get pretty stressed out. An alternate title for this message was Mary Oliver Stresses Me Out, but I considered my audience. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? As a phrase, and this poem in general, are considered to be a call to make the most of your life in a short time, to remind you to get the best out of it, whatever that means to you. It's a good sentiment, and I don't disagree with that. A day spent idle in the grass, contemplating grasshoppers is a wonderful day, an excellent way to pass the time, and yet for me, this has long been a paralyzingly stressful poem. Why? Because this life, right now, is my one wild and precious life. And I have to spend a lot of that time doing things that are not at all like strolling through a field. And I'm not even talking about the acutely not strolling through a field things, like having food poisoning or being at the DMV or unclogging a toilet or walking behind someone slow and dithering at the grocery store when I'm in a hurry or paying my taxes. I actually don't object to those things being part of my life, or life generally. I don't even really object to things like hurricanes or earthquakes or other acts of God that are horrific, but still very much real, as real a part of being alive as strolling idly through a field. No, what upsets me most about how I spend my time are those laborious and regular parts that feel inescapable, that you can't control as much as you think you ought to be able to, like being in a dead-end job, or having no great way to get out of an unhappy marriage, or never feeling at liberty to write the great American novel, or being unable to affect the intractable suffering of others, or feeling as though you have missed out on having a calling in your life. As far as I know, there's not a word for this feeling, and I have asked some word people who probably would know about it. It is not really boredom or even ennui, because, at least in my experience, modern life is not slow enough for either of those things. It isn't that I'm bored, it is that I feel the clock ticking on my one wild and precious life, and it's going very fast, and it's full of all these things that I must do before I can do the thing, whatever it may be, that is in me to do. It is the feeling that my body and my mind won't hold out long enough for me to have spent what feels like an infinite number of days strolling through a field, or mastering woodworking, or growing the perfect tomato, or knitting a wardrobe of sweaters, or having a slow day with beloved friends and family, or reading every interesting book, which is every book, or learning to do everything. You see, the human imagination is infinite, but the reality of human existence is finite. It is the grief for the inability of the finite to hold the infinite that I feel. And that doesn't have a word. But I've come to think of it as the Mary Oliver problem, because I can tell you precisely what I would do with my one wild and precious life, only everything. And in some ways, I've long resented Mary Oliver for reminding me that I cannot do everything. This is not a canonical reading of the poem. Mary Oliver wrote, or at least published, the poem when she was 57. You can't read her other writing and think she didn't understand the infinite. But I do think she was, but I do not think she was grieved by being unable to do everything, or at least not by the time she wrote The Summer Day. I suspect that we have all glimpsed the infinite in a summer day. It is the best time to do it, though I think you can also do it on a rainy day. No, I suspect that Mary Oliver, a woman from Ohio whose father was a social studies teacher, understood far better than I that what makes being human meaningful, even precious, is that you can't be infinite, you can't do everything, you have to choose. And what you choose had better be good, because this is your one shot. In some ways, it would be nice to believe in the afterlife, a place where after this too soon over life we are rewarded with the infinite. I do not really concern myself with whether the afterlife is probable or what I would do there, because it seems like the sort of place where, if it does exist, I'll never know in this life. So it's better to not waste time here gambling on there being a there, only to disappear from existence having never lived here. If there is an afterlife and I'm wrong, I can still try that sort of existence later, no harm, no foul. But I don't really believe in that, and I suspect that most of you don't either. So here I am, having made it through 20 of my allotted 10, confronting the possibility that I am over halfway done with being alive, and I worry that I'm not considering intentionally what I want to do with my life. I suspect that many people are not as deeply interested in the doing of everything as I am, but even so, there appears to be a very large and lucrative industry focused on helping people maximize their time so they can get more done. I have been a devotee of many of these types of methods. It is possible that most of you have been fortunate enough to never have to read a book about time management, so this might not make sense to you, but I've done the zero inbox, I have eaten the frog, I've done the bullet journal, I've time boxed, I have observed the 80-20 rule, I've made metrics, I've set timers and declined meetings and set strategic goals. It's not that none of these things work, some of them do sort of work. The problem is that they're rigid and time-consuming processes in their own right, and that any time they free up tends to be filled with more things that I still don't want to do or enjoy. In reading 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman last year, I was confronted by the clear problem in all time management thinking, and it's the Mary Oliver problem. No amount of structuring one's finite existence, which is on average only 4,000 weeks long, is going to give you infinite time. And what is more, much of your life becomes about maximizing the time you have to cram more in. There can be nothing so organic and seemingly limitless as a summer day in your life if you are spending all of it maximizing every single minute. There are no grasshoppers eating sugar out of your hand. There is no falling down in the grass. There is only the treadmill, and the treadmill is the worst part of our finitude. It is the experience that every day is really the same day, and that day is filled with things like spreadsheets and conference calls and sitting in traffic. You know, it wasn't always like this. I try not to idealize the past because, like any modern human, I love and appreciate indoor plumbing and refrigeration and birth control and the internet, but our forebears were better at some things than we are now. So it seems unwise to ignore that fact. A medieval peasant was not considering their day in terms of productivity and maximizing time. There was no way they could grow their crops faster simply by working harder on any given day. That is not how crops work. They experienced the flow of time differently than we did. They did not have a concept of hours and minutes. They had daylight and night, seasonal time, holy feasts, and the Sabbath, but they couldn't really be late for things. They couldn't waste time like it was a quantity or a resource like water or food. Before the Industrial Revolution, time was very much like Mary Oliver strolling through a field, or as researchers of this sort of thing call it, deep time. Deep time is like toddler time, or Sunday driver time. It is the German word Eigenzeit, which means the time inherent to the thing itself, or what is meant by the English phrase, it takes as long as it takes. The time we live in now is clock time. Though we can still be lucky enough to be in the flow of deep time, but we may well come to feel guilty about dallying there for too long. The Industrial Revolution brought with it many amazing advances in everyday life, the indoor plumbing and whatnot, but it also brought with it clock time. The addition of clock time gave us the perplexingly interesting concepts of productivity and efficiency, which are nested concepts. The objective of industrialization is faster and more efficient production. From a certain perspective, efficiency seems like an excellent achievement. It seems possible to make something so efficient that no one has to do anything anymore, that everything could be automated and we could all of us sit around eating bonbons and reading Mary Oliver. In fact, this was a concern of economists in the last century. John Maynard Keynes predicted in 1930 that his grandkids, and that would be people my age and slightly older, would be working only 15 hours a week, and the struggle of our time would be what to do with all the idleness. It seems as though that did not come to pass, but not because we haven't achieved greater efficiency in many, many things, mostly because productivity and efficiency have become ends in and of themselves. Though I think a responsible economist would tell us the reason that the work week is still 40 hours and not 15 is because the cost savings from efficiencies did not go to the workers but to shareholders, which is called the productivity pay gap, but that's a tale for another day. I suspect that if I were a medieval peasant, I would not have this adversarial relationship with time that I have now. And if I were an industrial worker punching a clock and doing repetitive tasks all day, I would have a more adversarial relationship with time than I have now. I do better in deep time. In this regard, I'm fortunate to be autistic because getting into hyperfocus and losing all track of clock time is one of the things I do best and can do relatively easily. In truth, I sometimes feel as though I've experienced entire lifetimes in few minutes or hours. The problem is that the world runs on clock time, so I'm always late. I told Marianne it was like the first time I'd been on time in a decade today. It was great. Actually, I was like a half hour early. I am unable to predict what the thing is that I will hyper-focus on. Will it be the report I need to complete by the deadline? Or will it be taking apart a spinning wheel, or designing a greenhouse, or reading a book about time management? In fact, my undiagnosed autism is one of the main reasons that I had been forced to try out every time management and organization strategy the Harvard Business Review could write an article about. I am a very poor fit for clock time. I'm a poor fit for measured and predictable productivity. And yet, because of my unflagging desire to pursue certain high-interest activities to the exclusion of all others, I think that from the outside, it looks like I get a lot of things done. The reality is more like, when I'm focused, I can get a week's worth of work done in half a day, but the rest of the time I'm sitting around burned out and exhausted, hoping that the muse will move me before anyone finds out I've been doing nothing for days or even weeks. The stress of such stretches of nothing is pretty debilitating, and I've noticed that as I get older, the rest period that I need whenever I have to go into extreme focus because of procrastination mode gets longer and longer. In recent years, I've started to wonder how much longer I'll be able to sustain a 40-hour-a-week job and do anything else that I enjoy at all, which, as we have discussed, is a lot of things. One of the more unfortunate legacies of industrialization and the cult of productivity is the confusion of productivity with value and value with worth. If you're productive, you have value. If you have value, then your life and your being are worth something. But these are not really the same thing. During periods of great productivity, I always feel like I'm on top of things. I'm so valuable. But when I have periods of non-productivity, I feel my sense of value on the wane and therefore my larger worth. A good friend of mine often counsels me, oh, okay, but even you at 50% is worth like most people at 100%. And that isn't not true from a productivity mindset, but at the same time, I know that increasingly my output's closer to 20% of what I feel like it should be, and that seems like not enough percent. And if my reliable output is only 20%, how long before other people, like my boss, decide that I'm an underperformer who's not valuable enough to keep around? Or worse, what if I become a drain on society and can't work at all? There appears to be a pervasive belief in our society that if you can't work for a wage, then you have no value. You're a drain on society. Intellectually, I'm against this idea, and even more than intellectually, it is antithetical to a major underpinning of Unitarian Universalism. After all, the first UU principle says that we agree to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Every time Judy sings a Seven Principle song and says, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, I say, amen, because I'm here for the inherent worth and dignity of every person. I want to shout from the rooftops about how everyone, everywhere, regardless of anything, has inherent worth and dignity, but then I hear this little voice in the back of my head, but not you. Your worth and therefore your dignity is derived from your value add to society. The fact that I sometimes feel this way about myself means that sometimes I feel it about other people. Sometimes I find myself wondering why other people don't try harder, if they are really valuable and worthwhile at all. I've learned from the disability community online that this is my internalized capitalism talking. A completely unexpected benefit of my autism diagnosis has been the discovery of the autism and thereby disability community online. Alice Wong is a disabled activist and writer who has a congenital neurodegenerative disease. And the disability writers that she works with under her Disability Visibility Project write extensively about ableism and internalized capitalism, and how they work together in society to create a belief in our culture and in disabled people themselves that we're not only useless and worthless, but an active burden on society because we cannot always work or contribute in traditional ways. Being autistic is not the same situation that Alice Wong is in. She cannot pass as someone without a neurodegenerative disorder and needs home health aides in order to maintain her health, hygiene, and mobility. But it's important for us to understand that even if she never wrote anything or never won any honors and never got to meet the president, she would still have inherent worth and dignity. Slowly, the disability community is helping me to challenge my own internalized capitalism and ableism, letting me know that even if I can't work one day, I will still have value and worth. In this way, I get closer to living the first principle. It's an important spiritual journey, but I'm also on a material journey where I need to be a breadwinner with health insurance. Sometimes this feels like a race against when my retirement kicks in and my ability to work goes out. Even if I am able to get to a place where I can understand my own inherent worth and dignity, it does not mean that someone's going to pay my way. We still have externalized capitalism. I have considered other jobs where I can hope for a comparable wage and health insurance, but I worry about having the reliable focus to run my own business or go freelance. It seems a more precarious route than the one I'm on now. And how, in all of that careful planning, am I to deal with the Mary Oliver problem? Working at a desk every day is not at all how I want to spend my one wild and precious life. And I wonder if maybe that sort of thing is past for me. Maybe I need to settle for a more staid and insignificant life, a slightly disappointing life. For the last year, because I'm a very intentional person, I've been preparing to turn 40. This just happened a few weeks ago. I was not particularly concerned with having a midlife crisis because indeed I appear to have been having a whole life crisis for most of it anyway. But instead I was considering 40 a sort of natural fulcrum for dealing with the Mary Oliver problem. So over the past year I've been reading a lot of books and flirting with the idea that though this is undoubtedly my only life, I'm really not under any obligation to do anything in particular with it. It is, after all, my life and not anyone else's. I just need to do enough of what is required of me so that I can do what is nourishing to me. I've started having these sort of revolutionary, at least for me, ideas that maybe life really is in the day-to-day. Maybe I should be filling more of every day with things that make me more joyful and are more pleasurable. So I sat down and I thought about everything that is something I enjoy in my life and discovered that, as with succeeding in time management in general, very little of my overall time was filled with those things I enjoyed. Go figure. So I resolved to put more of those things into my life. For my birthday, Becky left a book on my porch, Unmasking Autism, Discovering New Faces of Neurodiversity. It's a thoughtful gift and a great read for many reasons, but for our purposes here, it has a series of worksheets that walk the reader through something called values-based integration. The idea is simple. First, you identify your values and activities that bring you joy, and then you analyze them for patterns, and then you let go of things that you don't value. You can't let go of everything, but you should consider letting go of as much as possible and letting other people do it for you. It's very on brand for me to spend a year trying to figure out how to do something only to do it and then read about it in a book a few weeks later. But also it was very affirming. Obviously the list of things that I made for myself might be different than what others would pick for themselves, but I did not put things on my list like be on time, or impress strangers at dinner parties, or even be productive at my job. It was more like take longer dog walks, and smile at babies in line at the grocery store, and read more fiction, and hang out with my kids more. I'm going to lean into the finite and spend more of my life in the Eigenzeit, and not measure my worth by my output anymore. I aspire to be the old lady in the neighborhood gardening in my patched bathrobe with a dozen chickens all around. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I don't know if people want to do reflections. We have a little bit of time before we sing our last song, so I can pass the mic if people are interested.
So, I knew Jemma was giving this service today, and I made a point to be here because she fills my head with so many ideas. And I admire her greatly. And I'm also particularly stimulated by Jemma's particular Gemma-ness, which is that she has a very intellectual, analytical, well-organized in certain ways, brain. And I have noticed a lot of things she does that are in what I call the art department. Gardening, making things with her hands, raising two outstanding children. And if I knew her better, I could probably make a very long list. But what I'm struck by is while you were talking, I was comparing your life with my life, and I took another path. And I've only been employed by somebody else for 6 months when I was 20 years old. And the rest of my life was self-employment. And so I got to set my own tasks and complete them according to my own schedule. And hearing you talk, what a difference that made to me. And I never really felt like I had a job, even though I worked all the time, because I had a passion for what I was doing. And so my heart really aches for you and all of us who have had to have jobs of sitting at a desk or doing a task that really wasn't our fondest desire. So I feel like you and I could have a 10-hour discussion about your sermon this morning, but I won't go on because other people may want to say things. But I just want to say, you've touched my heart, and thank you.
Just 2 words, dance more.
Like I know that, but also.
Thank you, Jemma. That was wonderful. Being retired gave me permission to ask that question freely. But my life, in terms of the jobs, has been a complicated mix of working for other people in a job and working for myself. And I never really fit in the job situations very well. So, and I don't know why, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, Social Security and pensions give me the freedom to ask that question. And I love the question. And I am learning to do this really hard thing and look at those self-styled obligations that I've created for myself that no longer fit and say no.
Thanks, Jemma. I enjoyed your talk, but I also wanted to mention the comment that you made at the spiritual discussions group. I think that was it last month. You know how when people say things, you're like, oh, that's a really good quote. I should remember that forever, and then you don't remember it, and then you remember the things that you never think that you'll remember. But when you said that you and Asher were talking about how to know what you should do when you grow up, and that what you really need to do is decide how you want to spend your days, and then live your life in a way where most days can be spent the way you would hope, in that way. So I butchered your quote, actually, but I think I've passed that along to probably 5 people in the past month, and I've been thinking about it all the time. But yeah, I'm with you in that I think Ryan bears the brunt of all the way I want to live my one precious life. He's very supportive in that, thank you. But yes, thank you for your inspiration, Jemma.
I think we all want Asher to be the leader of the free world, but he's decided he wants to be a herpetologist because he wants to be outside looking under rocks for snakes. So we're going to encourage that.
I always enjoy your messages, wouldn't miss it, and the red shoes. And so I just have some scattered thoughts, one of which is I didn't think about what I would want to do with my one precious life when I was 40. But 3 years into retirement, yeah, because you don't have to make the money anymore. And when I was 40, I was raising kids, and I was working for somebody in a job. But I'm one of those people that absolutely cannot work for themselves. I don't see it as a treadmill. I need to do work I like, but someone needs to, because I have time management problems, someone needs to tell me a time to show up to work and even a time to go home, because if I like it, I just keep working. So, so it's harder without the parameters of a job or kids needing you, at least for me. It's so when I hit retirement, well, when you hit retirement during the pandemic, it's especially free-floating. But I like the idea of filling your days more with really evaluating what we want and then making an effort to put those things in our lives. And I'd love to hear your whole list.
There's a spreadsheet. Oh, but we have plenty. I don't have a watch because.
Yeah. So I also have the Mary Oliver problem. And so this is how I manage it. I go, so what do I want to make of this life next? And then I am able to say, to reflect and appreciate how I have spent my life up to this point. That was really rewarding and wonderful. So it's that both and of not forgetting to be grateful for that privilege of we all have here, I think, of spending our life in a really good way.
We're now going to sing hymn number 350, The Ceaseless Flow of Endless Time. Right on. There are no accidents. So please stand as you are willing and able.
I'll play through the whole thing.
The chalice. Please read together from our order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I will make an announcement that Karis made the cookies for coffee today, and they are particularly excellent. I was not involved because I had procrastinated and I was working on my service. So she made them herself. Do we have any other announcements that are not in the order of service? I know we had to have a location change for our discussion group because Rodney Street is destroyed in front of George's house. So we'll be meeting at Pat Sandin's tomorrow night at 7? Right, 108 Ridgewood, right? Okay. Any other announcements? Cass?
So, I think it's next Sunday's birthday, is that right? You didn't know?
It's pretty close. It's like the
Yeah,
23rd-ish.
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah.
And it happens to be a day that I'm giving the homily, and I didn't think to center it on Earth Day. And I got a note from Jan Haran last night about what are we doing to celebrate Earth Day? And I sent her a note back. I don't think she's got it yet, but I said, your idea of going on a picnic at the fairgrounds after service sounds like a great idea. So,
Spring Meadow.
huh?
Spring Meadow?
Yeah.
Spring Meadow, okay.
So the plan has not been gelled, but it might be. So keep in mind, maybe next Sunday afternoon, we might be able to be outside together eating fried chicken or whatever.
Others, probably not. We do have a little bit of time for joys and concerns, if we have some. I know it's hard to do it here at the end because of YouTube instead of where we normally do it. I don't have any joys or concerns.